They're being called heroes, Catholic Charities of Brooklyn and Queens. I'm Tim Harfman, and I'll report on why. That's coming up.
Tonight, an update on an exclusive story we brought you about New Yorkers who can't access a subway platform. I'm Emily Druby, and coming up, I'll tell you all about a major development.
A Catholic reporter seized by the military in Venezuela, the latest on his fate and the dangers confronting other Christian journalists. Plus, the backlash after a Catholic student is forced by his teacher to wipe ashes from his forehead on Ash Wednesday. The news starts right now.
On behalf of all Brooklynites, I salute Catholic Charities.
The top government leader in Brooklyn, Eric Adams, honors Catholic Charities Brooklyn Queens as heroes. Good evening, everyone. I'm Liz Faublas. When people are in need, they can count on Catholic Charities for assistance. Today, the faith-based organization is being recognized for what they do. Currents News' Tim Harfman reports.
Catholic Charities of Brooklyn and Queens being called heroes by Brooklyn Borough President Eric Adams. Richard Slizeski is part of the group and proud.
The wonderful thing about it affirms the work that we do every day, which is to meet the needs of people where they're at.
This time, the agency came to the aid of federal workers locked out of their jobs and paychecks for more than a month by the government shutdown, earning for Catholic Charities Brooklyn's recognition as Heroes of the Month.
They went and sought someone that was not on their radar and said, listen, we're here from you to get you over this turbulent period.
Catholic Charities of Brooklyn and Queens operated 2 special food pantries, one in each borough. Nearly 600 workers shopped supermarket style for everything from food to toiletries.
Watching mother and child go from station to station looking for their daily essentials was truly touching. Just seeing the family really just put a face to the problem.
Catholic Charities also handed out vouchers to people for gasoline and to shop at local supermarkets. Plus, they distributed Target gift cards. Joanna Skrelly said today's honor made a big impression.
It was a really emotional day, filled with hope.
Although Adams is honoring Catholic Charities of Brooklyn and Queens for coming to the aid of furlonged workers, he also said the agency makes a difference every day in the lives of thousands.
That's so important. It is often ignored. We did not want to ignore it, and we wanted the rest of Brooklyn and the rest of the city to know about it.
It's gratifying, and it reminds me that we have to look around and see who the most vulnerable in our community is, and we're here to help them.
In downtown Brooklyn, Tim Harfman, Currents News.
An update tonight on a big problem facing many New Yorkers, the struggle to get from the street down to the subway. Currents News' Emily Druby recently reported exclusively on a Brooklyn family that can't reach the train, and tonight she's been standing by in Windsor Terrace to tell us about new action that's being ordered to improve accessibility. Emily.
Liz, this subway station was renovated recently, but there's still no elevator, making it difficult for those who require one. But now advocates are saying they hope they're looking at a hopeful future because of a federal court ruling. Subway accessibility problems often prevent Brooklyn family, the Hallecks, from traveling far.
Other moms are saying like, oh, I want to go to the park that's a little farther away, and I'm thinking, I can't do anything except what's right outside my door.
Sarah and her husband Sasha have one son who uses a stroller and another who can't walk on his own. They say at too many stations there's no safe way to access the platform, so they do without it.
You know, at this point we've learned to navigate the city without public transportation, and we don't rely on public transportation as a family. Like we just can't do it.
Subway accessibility problems, a reality for many. A 2018 report from the city comptroller's office shows only 24% of the 472 subway stations citywide are accessible by an elevator. Now, a new federal court ruling is giving some, like Valerie Joseph, who works at Brooklyn Center for Independence of the Disabled, hope.
It's going to be a big win for us, and that means that they'll listen to us.
The court's decision came after a Bronx subway station was renovated, including updates to the stairs, but still didn't have an elevator, a violation under the Americans with Disabilities Act.
It's unfair, because as I always say, we're people.
Now the MTA is on notice. Anytime a subway station is renovated, an elevator must be installed, no matter the cost, unless it's technically impossible. Joseph Rappaport, the executive director at the Brooklyn Center for Independence of the Disabled, calling this an important case.
What this case does is makes it clear to the MTA, if you're going to replace stairwells, if you're going to put in new stairways, you've got to make sure that the station is made more accessible as well.
The center is in court against the MTA, suing in 2 cases about elevators. We reached out to the MTA for reaction to the ruling. They tell us, quote, the MTA is steadfastly committed to improving access throughout the subway with a hard and fast goal of making 50 additional stations accessible over 5 years. We're not wavering from that commitment, adding that they take their accessibility responsibilities very seriously. There are alternatives to the subway for people with disabilities, like Accessoride, a service for those who can't use the subways or ride a bus, but not all advocates are fans. Some call it unreliable and difficult to use. In Windsor Terrace, Emily Drewby, Currents News.
All right, Emily, thank you very much. A strong statement tonight from Brooklyn Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio and New York's 27 other bishops. They are adamantly opposed to the proposed legalization of recreational marijuana in the state, and they're accusing lawmakers of encouraging destructive behavior to raise tax revenue that will have consequences, including increased teenage and childhood usage, harmful effects on developing brains, addiction, natural progression to harder drug use, and an increase of impairment-related transportation accidents and deaths. Help for Catholic schools could be on the way from Washington. A federal tax credit is being proposed that would help parents send their children to Catholic school. The National Catholic Education Association is supporting the idea. The U.S. Department of Education calls the plan Education Freedom Scholarships, a proposal that's coming from members of Congress. The feds say the tax credit would inject $5 billion into the locally controlled scholarships. Bishop DiMarzio is a tax credit advocate, and he said today, on behalf of all Catholic, parochial, and private school students throughout our country, United States Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos is to be commended for this significant proposal. As the costs of schooling continue to rise, any efforts that will make tuition and thus opportunity more affordable must be considered. Throughout the diocese in Brooklyn and Queens, our schools offer similar assistance through our Futures in Education. If approved, this federal program would build on our efforts and would provide even greater financial relief for Brooklyn and Queens families who want a Catholic education for their children but cannot fully afford one. Since Futures in Education started in 1989, over $100 million has been awarded to more than 28,000 students. About a third of families live at or below the poverty line. Being safe online is a major concern for many people. Today, the Senate put that worry under a microscope and grilled the chiefs of 2 companies hit by huge hacks. Karen Kaifa reports from Washington.
2 companies, 2 of the largest data breaches in history.
To all of our guests, I sincerely apologize.
Marriott CEO Arnie Sorensen testifying before a Senate subcommittee about a massive breach of the Starwood reservation system announced by the hotel chain last November. Marriott completed an acquisition of Starwood in 2016. Sorensen now says information from up to 383 million guests was compromised, including passport and credit card numbers.
We have shared everything we have with the FBI, including the addresses used and the malware tools used in the system so that they can do that kind of investigation. We've simply been focused on making sure the door is closed and communicating with our customers.
Mark Begor joined Equifax months after their 2017 announcement of a breach impacting more than 143 million customers. The CEO responded to the committee's sharply critical report of the credit monitoring company's practices before the breach.
There were controls in place. They clearly weren't strong enough. And, we've taken great steps since then. We've doubled the size of our security team.
Senators pushing for action.
The constant stream of data breach notifications we see year in and year out is a sign to me that we could and should be doing a lot better.
Floating the idea of legislation and urging companies to take more steps to keep consumers' data safe. In Washington, Karen Kaifa, Currents News.
French Cardinal Philippe Barbarin has been convicted. The Archbishop of Lyon was found guilty of failing to report alleged incidents of sexual abuse by a priest in his diocese. Barbarin was given a 6-month suspended prison sentence. The cardinal's lawyer could appeal the verdict, claiming there is no proof of any legal wrongdoing. The 68-year-old offered his resignation to Pope Francis this afternoon. A Catholic journalist is free tonight after being seized by the military in Venezuela. Cody Weddle, who has a legal residence in the country, was taken into custody by government forces on Wednesday. Weddle had been covering the current political crisis before he was arrested. The Maduro regime claimed he might be a spy, and when they questioned him, his head was covered in a hood. Weddle's mother is speaking out about that ordeal.
I know that my son loves the Venezuelan people and that he has lots and lots of people there that love and care about him. And I'll just keep praying for them that things will improve. I love you. Gonna give him a big hug. And just telling me better not ever do this to me again.
His mother was able to get in touch with him through Facebook. Weddle is now back home in Miami and is said to be okay. This is just the latest incident of journalists facing danger in their work, especially in places where religious freedom doesn't exist. National correspondent for The Tablet and Crux, Christopher White, joins us now to dig into that. Christopher, thank you so much. This is definitely a tough subject. What is the overall state of Christian journalists, especially ones who are sent to cover in these really dangerous places?
Yeah, it's a tough subject, especially for those of us who work in this space.
It hits close to home.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you know, Christian journalists go to great lengths, personal and professional risks to tell these stories that really matter to people of faith. And it's rarely the work that garners Pulitzer Prizes or that sort of thing, but it's important stuff. And one area that specifically comes to mind is telling the story of anti-Christian persecution, which is certainly on the rise around the globe. And that affects those that actually tell the story as well, not just those being persecuted, but those who bring this to a larger audience.
Are there regions that are particularly more dangerous than others?
Yeah, we've certainly seen an uptick in places in Africa, Asia, and the Middle East, where it's sort of a hotbed, and we've seen sort of the Catholic Church in these areas try to respond as such.
Now, Pope Francis has been very supportive of journalists, even dedicating a month of prayer intentions for them last year. Have we heard from the Holy Father about this form of persecution?
Yeah, Pope Francis has repeatedly said the truth will set you free when he talks about the media, and he's met with Christian journalists that have faced persecution on multiple occasions, so I think it's close to his heart as well.
All right, Chris, thank you very much. We really appreciate that report. New information from the Vatican about the status of the Catholic Church in the world. The up-to-date statistics show a slight increase in the population of the faithful, now standing at just over 1.3 billion people. Breaking down where they live, more than 48% are in the Americas, North and South. Nearly 22% live in Europe, almost 18% in Africa, and 11% are in Asia. There's a lot more news headed your way. The outrage over a teacher forcing a young student to wipe the ashes off his forehead on Ash Wednesday. I talk with a survivor of an abortion, her story and her thoughts about the Senate killing the Born Alive Act, plus The Saint of Divine Mercy, a new movie about her screened at the Vatican 60 years after controversy. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@thesalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. Tonight, outrage in the wake of a teacher ordering a Catholic fourth grader to wipe the ashes off his forehead on Ash Wednesday. John Franchi has more on what happened to the student.
They put him on your forehead to show holiness.
William McLeod was the only student in his class with an ash cross on his forehead.
A lot of students ask me what it is. I was like, I'm Catholic's First Day of Lent, Ash Wednesday.
Ash Wednesday is the start of the Easter season.
They celebrate getting closer to God.
But the cross didn't stay on William's forehead very long.
And the teacher walked over and said, what is that? And I was like, it's Ash Wednesday and I'm Catholic's First Day of Lent. And he's like, no, it's inappropriate. Go take it off.
His attempt to explain the meaning of the symbol fell on deaf ears.
And she took me aside and she said, you have to take it off. So she gave me a the infection wipe, whatever they're called, and she made me wipe it off.
Williams says it happened as many of his classmates watched.
They saw a teacher wipe it off because I wiped it off in front of all my friends. I felt like really bad.
The school's principal called Williams' grandmother as soon as she learned of the incident.
I was pretty upset.
The teacher also called.
And I asked her if she read the Constitution of the First Amendment, and she said no and oh.
The Davis School District says what happened is not acceptable.
Why that even came up, I have no idea.
It wants students of all faiths to feel welcomed.
When a student comes into school with ashes on the forehead, it's not something that we say, please take off.
Later in the day, William received this candy and a handwritten message from his teacher.
It said, William, I'm so sorry. I hope we can move things from here.
He and his family hope this will serve as a valuable learning experience.
I hope it helps somebody, and I hope it never happens again, which I don't think it will.
Williams' teacher is now under investigation by the school district and could face disciplinary action. Tonight, a court has granted an unborn baby legal rights and cleared for an Alabama man to sue after the infant was aborted. Ryan Magers is suing the clinic that performed the procedure on a woman Magers claims was pregnant with his child. The judge who approved the lawsuit has called Magers the father of baby Roe. The clinic has until April 1st to respond to the court. Now, more on the failed Born Alive Act we've been telling you about. The measure was killed by a Senate filibuster. It would have required doctors to provide health care to any child who survived an abortion. Melissa Oden, a survivor of abortion herself and the founder of the Abortion Survivors Network, joins me now to talk more about this. Melissa, tell us your survival story.
Yeah, the short version is that 41 years ago, my biological mother, as a 19-year-old college student, actually had a saline infusion abortion forced upon her against her will. That type of procedure involved injecting a toxic salt solution into the amniotic fluid surrounding me in the womb. And the intent of that toxic salt solution was to poison and scald me to death from the outside in.
You're a medical miracle story, and I know we discussed this. You found this out at 14. You found out the story of your survival at 14. Now, there aren't a lot of statistics about babies who actually survive abortion in this country. Your website, though, does list data from other countries, including Canada, where a government report showed from 2000 and 2009, 491 children survived abortion. In the UK, 1 in 30 abortions performed after 16 weeks resulted in an infant born alive. And in Australia, and we're looking specifically at the state of Queensland, there were 204 born alive babies within a 10-year period. That's from 2005 to 2015. Why is this not more well known to the public?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? I mean, when I first found out my story of survival, I thought I was the only one. And then over time, of course, found strength finding out that there was one story and then another. But really, no one except us as survivors really did a lot of the digging, right, to say, how often does this happen? How many of us are there? And we need to share this with the world.
Melissa, you survived. So could we then argue that there really are medical professionals who do save the lives of children who are abortion survivors? Why did we even need legislation?
And we hear that argument, right? People are saying, well, this is unnecessary, right? You lived. Well, my story really isn't that pretty. I now know that when I was born alive after that saline infusion, they laid me aside. My adoptive parents had been told that years ago. We laid her aside, and I was nearly dead before a nurse rushed me off to the NICU that day and said she just kept gasping for breath. And so I couldn't just leave her there to die.
So, Melissa, we need professionals like that one. We need professionals like the one that was there for you.
Yes. And I think we need to make sure that it's not just the luck of the draw, right? Mm-hmm. I was blessed that day to have the right people on staff who were going to do the right thing for me. But no child should have their fate resting in the hands of just who happens to be working that day, right?
Which brings us, unfortunately, to the fact that the bill failed in the Senate, as we've been reporting. Where do we go from here? How do we help protect babies born alive after abortion? Because that does indeed happen.
We need to make it clear to our legislators that we demand better than this for children like me.
Melissa, you were meant to be here. You were meant to be here and to share this story, and I thank you so much for sharing it with us. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you.
Tablet editor-in-chief Jorge Dominguez is writing about the Senate defeat of the Born Alive Act, saying, quote, "The horrific implications of this vote should change the whole debate about abortion." You can read Jorge's entire editor's space column in the current edition of the Tablet. Still to come on Currents News, Pope Francis is being recognized for helping children in the Central African Republic in a special way, and the story of a saint whose message on divine mercy sparked controversy at the Vatican 60 years ago. We'll be right back. The president of the Central African Republic is thanking Pope Francis. During a private meeting, he expressed his gratitude to the pontiff for leading the Vatican's initiative to open a pediatric hospital, which was just inaugurated last weekend in Bangui. Pope Francis visited the Central African Republic in 2015, despite several warnings not to go because his life could have been in danger. The region has been suffering from a violent war since 2013. Over half a century ago, the Vatican clamped down St. Faustina's message of divine mercy. But on the anniversary of that action, a film based on the saint has been screened at the Vatican, and Sean Richardson reports on that.
It is exactly 60 years ago today since the Vatican prohibited St. Faustina's message of divine mercy. At the time, all bishops had been told to remove the images of divine mercy. Now, 60 years later in the Vatican, the very place the Divine Mercy message was originally banned, is a screening of this new docudrama about St. Faustina, Love and Mercy. It examines the life of this famous saint and those involved in preserving the Divine Mercy image. Mikhail Kondrad, director of Love and Mercy, believes it's very symbolic for the film to be shown here in the Vatican.
It's beautiful that we can, in the same place, show the movie about Sister Faustina. Sometimes we need to time to confirm something, and it was exactly with revelation of Sister Faustina Kowalska.
The film even reveals unknown facts and recently disclosed documents, such as a letter Father Michael Sopocco sent to the Vatican. It also offers new scientific analysis of the exact matching of Christ's face in the Divine Mercy image to that on the Shroud of Turin. According to Cardinal Salvatore De Giorgi, St. Faustina's revelation emphasizes once again God's great mercy. She received from Jesus directly the revelation of the greatest and joyful message of the gospel, that God is merciful. For Kamila Kamienicka, a Polish actress who plays St. Faustina in the film, this nun's perseverance and obedience to God's call in proclaiming His mercy is what impressed her the most.
She trusts Him. So for me, it's amazing because everybody can listen to God. Everybody, but not everybody wants to. And everybody have some task for life.
The filmmakers hope this film will continue to promote the mercy God wanted St. Faustina to communicate to the whole world. The movie Love and Mercy will be screened in various cinemas across the world. It even had a special screening during Panama World Youth Day. In Rome, Sean Richardson, Currents News.
And that is Currents News. I'm Liz Faublas. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.